What's happening, ladies and germs? This is the Packerman, and welcome to our second episode of today of The Fuel. In this episode, we are going to be reviewing the 2020 O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 at the Texas Motor Speedway. I didn't really point this out in the previous episode because time was short, but as you can see from my background, I'm recording in a different spot, still in the living room, but just to give you an idea. The computer table used to be right here, and when it was recording, it would be facing this way towards the door. But I decided to move everything. To over here. I have the TV right here now, and the computer table is facing the kitchen now. Frozen water. So damn good. So not a whole hell of a lot in the way of news of the week. We're gonna really, it's just the IndyCar races that we have to take a look at, so let's go ahead and do that real quick. Alright, so IndyCar results. The Iowa IndyCar 250s, they were at the Iowa Speedway doing a doubleheader. Their second straight doubleheader, so basically they did 5 races in like 2 weeks, which is a pretty hectic schedule for IndyCar. In the first race on Friday night, Simon Pagenaud started dead last because he had some type of mechanical issue during qualifying. Ended up coming through and winning the race and even led the most laps. Don't know how that works out, but hey, he'll take it. I can't remember if it was this race or the second race where there was actually a couple of incidents. One involving Will Power and a loose wheel, and another one where Colton Herta got airborne and landed on another car. All I could say is thank God for the aero screens. But top 10 finishers for race 1. Simon Pagenaud, of course, with the win. Scott Dixon in second. Oliver Askew in the third position. That guy is impressing, dude. And that number 7 car for Aero Schmidt-Peterson, McLaren. And his teammate, Pato O'Ward, came home in 4th, Justin Newgarden in 5th, Alexander Rossi, Jack Harvey for the top 10, Connor Daly, Marcus Ericsson, and Takuma Sato. And then the results for race number 2, Justin Newgarden, I mean, he was, well, dominant, to put it mildly, because he started from the pole, led 214 of the race's 250 laps, and took the win. I mean, he got all the bonus points. He got maximum points. Will Power came home in 2nd. Graham Rahal in 3rd after starting 19th. Simon Pagenaud came home 4th after starting from dead last yet again. So he had to start dead last back-to-back times at Iowa and ended up with a win and a 4th place finish. Tell me that's not impressive. Scott Dixon comes home in 5th, so he's finished in the top 5 in all but one race this year, and that was the second Road America race. Oliver Askew impresses with another top 10 run, as does Jack Harvey. You have Alexander Rossi, Marcus Ericsson, and Marco Andretti. So your top 6 in the IndyCar point standings. You have Scott Dixon on top with 244 points. Simon Pagenaud is now 2nd in the championship with 195. Then you have defending champion Joseph Newgarden in 3rd. Pato O'Ward for Aero McLaren SB in 4th with 162. Then you have Will Power and Graham Rahal rounding out your top 6. That's pretty much it as far as news of the week is concerned. Very light week this week in terms of really meaningful storylines. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 race review. Alright, so here is your race review. of the 2020 O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 at Texas Motor Speedway. And this race was actually not terrible, although that third stage was certainly sloppy as hell. But let's go ahead and get into it. Stages 1 and 2 were 105 laps, with stage 3 being 124 laps. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Eric Almirola drew the pole for the race, of course, so he leads the field to the green flag. And he was already reporting that he had brake issues before the start. Basically, he had to pump the brakes a few times to get a solid pedal, which is certainly an issue. He leads lap 1. Kez starts dropping back a bit. Not much else happened before the competition caution on lap 21. Almirola decides to stay out as a lot of others come in for service, which was kind of a prevailing point of this race. Tires didn't mean jack shit. I mean, they would wear, but there was hardly any fall off whatsoever. Which, I mean, I'm not a big fan of races being decided on pit road. And that was kind of the case in this race, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Johnson got penalized for too many men over the wall. Almirola leads on the restart. Harvick gets a push from Truex to take the lead on the restart. No pure lead change, although there were plenty of those in this race. Damn. Can't believe, you're not going to believe the lead change count when I reveal it at the end of the race. Almirola fights to try to get back the lead. Truex challenges Almirola for second. Almirola continues to hound his teammate for the lead at lap 50. Johnson tries to recover from his penalty, and then Almirola makes a great pass to Harvick coming off of turn 2 to retake the lead for a first pure lead change on lap 56. Harvick loses second to Truex. The 10 and the 4 kick off green flag pit stops on lap 64, and Almirola gets penalized for a blend line violation. Now apparently there's some dotted lines off the exit turn 2 where you're supposed to blend up at, and it was pretty clear that he was a bit early, but I find it kind of weird that they have not called that penalty hardly at all in the entire time that I've heard of this penalty, and yet this weekend they decided to call it on Almirola. And it looked like Harvick did the same thing, yet they didn't call it on him. What the fuck? Just another classic case of inconsistent calls and inconsistent penalty bullshit from NASCAR. Go fucking figure. Some things never change. The NASCAR wonders why they're the fucking joke of the motorsports world. It's ridiculous. Truex runs himself out of fuel on lap 69, so that was kind of a brain fart on his part. We had our second pure lead change on lap 70 when Ryan Blaney took over the lead. Green flag pit stops began en masse on lap 87 because there were several others that didn't pit as well. And then the guys who did pit could go a little bit farther on fuel. Blaney cycles back with the lead. Reddick gets by Byron for the fourth position. I almost said Barron. And Ryan Blaney wins stage number 1. A lot of cars come down pit road for service. Ryan Blaney leads the start of stage number 2, which is 105 laps. Kyle Busch stays on the inside line and takes the lead. He actually stays side by side for a little bit, but then takes the lead for our third pure lead change on lap 113. Kurt Busch gets loose in turns 1 and 2 and hangs on. Then we have our second caution on lap 117 when Jimmy Johnson smacks the wall in turn 4 after getting loose in the high lane. That pretty much ended his day. Not ended his day, but ended his chances to win pretty much. And that pretty much puts his playoff hopes in jeopardy. Kyle Busch leads on the restart. Then Denny Hamlin gets around him for a fourth pure lead change on lap 124. Christopher Bell gets way loose and scrapes the wall off turn 4, but honestly, that should have been a whole lot worse. That should have been a wreck. Blaney gets by Kyle Busch for second and challenges Hamlin for the lead and takes it. And we have our fifth pure lead change on lap 127 at Texas Motor Speedway. What the fuck is going on? Logano gets by Kyle Busch for third. So we have Penske versus Gibbs in the top 5. Logano gets by Hamlin for second. So we have a Penske 1-2. At this point, they kind of let us know that, you know, it's 96 degrees at Texas Motor Speedway during this race, which was the hottest race that we've run this season. In fact, they had some temperature gauges in a couple of race cars, including Ty Dillon's. They said that under caution, it was getting up to as high as 145 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to boil water. Okay, that's hot enough to cook eggs. You know, that's hot enough to cook steak to medium rare. That's insane. And these guys have to sit in that, you know, oven of a cockpit for 4 fucking hours. Logano gets by Kyle Busch for third. I already said that. Almirola gets back into the top 10 after his dumb shit of a penalty on NASCAR's part. William Byron kicks off green flag stops on lap 160. Harvick pits from the lead on lap 175, and we have a long green flag pit cycle. Because sorry, I paused for that because I was trying to look ahead of my notes. Because the green flag stops basically kicked off on lap 160, and then Ryan Blaney finally cycles back to the lead on lap 190. So it was basically a 30-lap pit stop cycle between the first guy coming in and the last guy coming in. Pretty long pit cycle. Almirola with a nice 3-wide pass on Jones and Kyle Busch for 8th. Truex has to save fuel a little bit due to the team not getting it full on the pit stop, although there might have been some problems with the refueler. And Ryan Blaney wins stage number 2. So everyone comes in for service. Blaney wins the race off pit road. So he leads at the start of stage 3, but he gets loose in turn 4, but hangs on. But it caused a big bottleneck, which leads to the third caution on lap 219. Eric Almirola gets hooked a little bit by Kurt Busch, which turns him into Kyle Busch, which turns him into Truex. Kyle Busch basically goes Dukes of Hazzard through the grass. Surprised he didn't get more damage than that. Truex goes hard into the outside wall and basically comes down and collects a lot of cars. I mean, let's see. Cole Custer was involved, Brendan Poole was involved, William Byron, Chris Buescher, Matt Kenseth, Bubba Wallace, and Ricky Stenhouse. So, pretty big accident. They had to red flag the race to clean up the mess. Probably not the smartest idea to park them on the front stretch where all the fans were starting to gather a little bit. And considering, you know, the whole COVID-19 shit is still kind of going on, I wouldn't call that a smart thing to do. Not to mention the fact that it was brutally hot, and you know they had to basically sit in those cars for a couple minutes while the red flag was out. So didn't really agree with the red flag there. But Kez leads on the restart. Chase Elliott underneath of Blaney for third. Kez, Hamlin, and Blaney start fighting it out for the race lead. Kez and Hamlin side by side for the race lead for several laps, which was a good battle between those two. And Hamlin finally takes it on lap 234 for our 6th pure lead change of the day. But what that side-by-side battle did was basically bring, you know, the top 8 together by just 1 1/4 seconds. So I was like, damn, this is actually pretty good so far. Blaney gets by Keselowski for 2nd. Then Logano gets by Keselowski for 3rd as Blaney challenges Hamlin for the lead and takes it on lap 238 for our 7th pure lead change of the day. Logano loses momentum and loses 4 spots. Almirola gets up to 3rd. Harvick dive bombs Keselowski and Logano into turn 3, a 3-wide move, and gets them both, which was pretty impressive. We had lots of shuffling inside the top 10. And then we had our 4th caution on lap 244, and this is when this stage really got messy. John Hunter Nemechek spins and hits the inside wall on the backstretch after losing it in turn 2. Blaney stays out as most of the field comes in for service, so he leads on the restart. Hamlin leads the lap after the restart because, you know, they start side by side. He actually led at the line, but then Blaney took the lead back in turn 1. So that's our 8th pure lead change on lap 250. But then we have our 5th caution on lap 251 when Ty Dillon gets loose in turn 1 and gets up into William Byron, who is trying to make it into the playoff, even though, you know, he hasn't really been running that good. Byron smacks the wall, and Dillon also hits the wall hard. So that pretty much ended both of their days. Blaney leads on the restart. Almirola starts challenging Hamlin for second, with Matty D in fourth in the 21 car. Matty D ends up challenging Almirola for the third position. Blaney has a 2.5 second lead with 50 laps to go, and pit stops forthcoming. Chase Elliott kicks off the final round of green flags pit stops on lap 288. Blaney pits from the lead the next lap. Hamlin takes just 2 tires on his stop, and Blaney took 4 tires, so Hamlin had the lead, but Blaney was starting to really close the gap, and it really would have been interesting to see how this race would have played out if it would have gone green. Harvick manages to get around Joey Logano, who had assumed the race lead after the leader's pit, but then Harvick took the race lead on lap 305 for a 9th period lead change of the day. Logano was starting to come back on the outside, but then we get our 6th caution on lap 306. And this is when you kind of question why certain drivers are in the Cup Series. Because Quin Houff, driving the 00 car for Starcom Racing, being slow as usual, decides he's going to try to make it to pit road from the middle. He's in the middle lane in turn 4, decides he's going to try to cut down to try to get to pit road in front of traffic. Clips the 95 car of Christopher Bell, gets clipped by the 21 of Matt DiBenedetto, which ruins his top 5 run, and it sends the 00 hard into the wall, so at least he was okay in that regard. But this was in the middle of green flag pit stops, and it traps Ryan Blaney and Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin a lap down. So this changed the complexion of the race. Completely altered the outcome of this race. I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. Quin Houff is fucking trash. You know, there's some people that are, and what offends me is the fact that there are these fucking dick-sucking Quin Houff apologists who are like, well, he's just a rookie. What else do you expect? Oh, I don't know. Expect him to not drive with his fucking head up his ass? I don't give a fuck if he's a rookie or if he's Jimmy Johnson. That was an extremely boneheaded, dumbass move to make. Because A, it was extremely dangerous because he was cutting from the middle of the track into pit road. He could have been T-boned in the driver's side door, which could have injured him, could have injured somebody else. And I realized that the likelihood of injury has dropped significantly since, you know, thanks to all the safety innovations of this car. But the possibility is always going to be there. Remember the Daytona 500 with Ryan Newman? So the possibility is always there. But secondly, this completely altered the outcome of the race. This screwed over so many drivers out of a good run. You know, Ryan Blaney, he led the most laps, 150 laps, got screwed out of the win. Chase Elliott, he had a shot. Denny Hamlin, he had a shot. Matt DiBenedetto, he had a chance at a top 5 run. He's trying to make it into the playoff. You know, he ends up with a 17th place finish. I mean, it was just a dumb fucking move to make, and we've seen this out of this guy before. He's a moving chicane. You know, this guy has fewer starts in his entire career, his entire racing career, not just Cup, but Xfinity, Trucks, ARCA, Local, you name it. He has fewer starts in his entire career, all series combined, than a lot of drivers have at their local short track. You know, and the big question is, why is this guy even in the Cup Series to begin with? It's all about that cash money. He's got. That's why Starcom decided to let Landon Castle go last year, because Quin Houff had the cash money to bring to the team. And that's the problem with NASCAR nowadays, is that you have all these fucking pay drivers who can't drive worth a fuck, and then you have this shit that completely ruined what would have been a pretty damn interesting finish. I mean, and not only that, not only did this, you know, change the complexion of the race, but this also caused, you know, helped a couple guys get a win and a runner-up finish. And the fact of the matter is, I mean, they were non-factors for pretty much the entire race. Like, they were nowhere near being contenders for the win. So, you know, and I concur with a lot of the people, you know, a lot of the NASCAR tubers, that Quin Houff does not belong in the Cup Series, period. I mean, and to you Quin Houff apologists who say, well, he's a rookie. I mean, you're basically, what you're saying is you're basically condoning dangerous driving. I mean, just stop and think how fucking stupid that makes you look. Seriously. I mean, I don't give a flying shit if he's a rookie or if he's Cale Yarborough. He made an extremely egregiously dumb decision that not only had race-altering and potentially championship-altering implications, but was extremely dangerous, and he should be made to answer for it. We have to start holding these drivers accountable for their stupid mistakes. You don't get a fucking free pass just because you're a rookie. That's not how it works. We need to start holding these drivers accountable when they fuck up. And this was a pretty big fuck up. And that's all I got to say about that. Anywho, all the cars that hadn't pit yet come in for service. Tyler Reddick took just fuel, as did his teammate, and leads on the restart. And by teammate, I mean Austin Dillon. And he gets the run on the inside and takes the lead, and that ended up winning him the race. Just going to say that right now. Bubba Wallace starts challenging Harvick for the 5th position. Kyle Busch, Logano, Harvick, Kez, and Bubba start fighting hard for 3rd. Then we get our 7th caution on lap 320. Denny Hamlin and Alex Bowman involved in a crash in turn 2 after Hamlin gets loose underneath the Bowman, gets into him, and takes them both into the wall. So Dillon leads on the restart with 11 laps to go. Reddick leads the lap after the restart. Kyle Busch gets up to 3rd, but Austin Dillon manages to take the lead back for a 10th pure lead change on lap 325. Logano manages to get back by Kyle Busch for 3rd, and then we have our 8th and final caution on lap 329 when Denny Hamlin loses it off of turn 4 by himself. And I was like, man, this race got really messy in a hurry. So we have a pseudo green-white checkered. I don't think they actually made it to overtime officially. But Dillon leads on the restart with 2 laps to go. And, you know, despite my feelings about, you know, the tires being way too hard and causing, you know, a guy that had, you know, no business being up front to begin with the entire day, and he ends up winning the race. I mean, I'm still going to give him credit where credit is due, because, I mean, he held Joey Logano and Kyle Busch at bay. You know, him and Reddick both did. And Austin Dillon basically stole this win, as RCR goes 1-2 for the first time in 9 years, with Reddick finishing 2nd and getting his best career finish. I mean, this was highway robbery. That's what this was. And they can thank Quin Houff for that one. But, of course, I promised I would talk about this, the lead change count. 29 overall lead changes. Super competitive. And we had 10 pure lead changes in this race. Pretty interesting, to say the least. But let's go ahead and take a look at the results for the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500 at Texas. Austin Dillon, of course, with the win, took the lead with 22 laps to go, and basically led the rest of the way. And in fact, they did not get to official overtime, so they did run just the 500 miles. Tyler Reddick comes home in second. Joey Logano in third after leading 22 laps. Kyle Busch in fourth after leading 11 laps. Kevin Harvick in fifth after leading 40 laps. Eric Jones in sixth after leading 7 laps. Ryan Blaney led the most laps. It looked like he was on his way to his second win of the year and gets hosed yet again. It's ridiculous. Kurt Busch comes home in 8th, Brad Keselowski in 9th, and Eric Almirola, despite a dumb penalty, rounds out the top 10. So, point standings as we reach the halfway point of the season, which means that we have 8 races remaining before the playoff. And one thing that they added to the point standings is they added a cutoff line amount for the guys that are still above the cut line as far as pointing rate in, because with Austin Dillon and Cole Custer getting victories the last couple races, it's really turned the playoff picture upside down. But at the halfway point of the season, Kevin Harvick continues to lead the way. He has a 91 point edge on Ryan Blaney, so he has more than a full race advantage as he looks to try to snag the regular season title and the 15 playoff points that come with it. Ryan Blaney is now up to second in the points, even though he still has just the one win. Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, Penske teammates, in third and fourth. Chase Elliott in fifth. Denny Hamlin, despite having 4 wins, has been a little bit inconsistent and is finding himself sixth in the points. Martin Truex Jr. Just 1 win on the year so far, being at Martinsville, but he's still 7th in the points. Eric Almirola, winless on the year so far, but has 10 top 10 finishes, which is pretty damn good. And he's the highest of the winless drivers, and he has a 109 point edge on the playoff cutoff line. Kurt Busch in 9th in the point standings, quietly in 9th, 108 points above the cut line. His brother Kyle, still winless at the halfway point of this season, with 0 playoff points. That's just mind-boggling to me. This is the defending champion we're talking about here. And even though he's 95 points above the cutoff line, you would expect him to be in a higher spot than this, considering that he's won the last 2 regular season titles. Alex Bowman, of course, he got the win at California, but man, the performances of that 88 team have really fallen off. They only have 5 top 10s this entire season, and early on I picked them as a championship threat. Not really so much anymore. Matt DiBenedetto, 12th, Clint Boyer 13th. Austin Dillon with his win moves up to 14th, but of course he's locked in. Jimmy Johnson basically holds the final spot in the playoff right now. He's 2 points above the cutoff line. Then you have William Byron in 16th, Tyler Reddick, Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, and Chris Buescher rounding out the top 10. Now, if you're wondering where Cole Custer is, he's 22nd in points. Yet he is going to be locked into the playoff. Do we really need a reminder? Do I need to really remind you all just how garbage this fucking playoff system is? I mean, Cole Custer, yeah, he got the win at Kentucky, but he should not be contending for the championship. I'm sorry. Because he's just been nowhere near good enough. And there are a lot of people saying, well, Austin Dillon might be a championship contender. Don't make me laugh, okay? He's 293 points behind Kevin Harvick. He's not contending for a championship. So you might as well hang it up. I mean, do we really have to have this same conversation every single fucking year? I'm pretty sure we had the same conversation last year. As for my final rating for the O'Reilly Auto Parts 500, I mean, honestly, it was a pretty okay race. I mean, there were a lot of parts that were boring. And Quin Houff just fucking things up in that final stage. Ugh. And the final stage in particular, just being sloppy, kind of brought it down a little bit. But, I mean, considering how trash Texas Motor Speedway can be, this was honestly a pretty solid race overall. I'm going to give this race a solid 6.25 out of 10. So, that will be my final rating for Texas, which is higher than I usually give it. I'll tell you that much. So, pretty solid race by at the Texas Motor Speedway. Don't expect that to happen too often, though. But that's going to do it for today's edition of The Fuel. Get back-to-back episodes today. So you basically got 4 episodes of Motorsport Monday. You got 2 episodes of Wreckfest, of course, and then 2 episodes of The Fuel. So, and for those of you who are wondering where my All Elite Review edition of Fight for the Fallen is, it'll probably be up tomorrow. I just haven't been feeling all that good lately. I've been feeling really lethargic as of late. Of course, you know, in this brutally hot weather that we're experiencing right now, I think that kind of has something to do with it. So I've been feeling kind of lethargic lately, but that'll hopefully be up tomorrow. So, but that's going to do it for this edition of The Fuel. Next race is this Thursday night in Kansas, and then the Cup boys get a 10-day break, which they kind of need considering how crazy this schedule has been. But thank you very much for watching this edition of The Fuel, and until next time, this is the Packer Man signing out. See you later. You better like and subscribe or face the consequences. You have been warned.